In H. Rider Haggard's She, A History of Adventure, Ayesha is portrayed as an immortal queen who has lived for thousands of years, powerful, mysterious, and surrounded by ancient rituals. But for all of her supernatural beauty and impossible age, the foods that she ate are actually surprisingly humble. Today, I'm going to be stepping into her world. I'm going to recreate one of the foods described in the novel, and I'm going to be exploring who Ayesha was and her relation to the goddess Isis. So let's begin and explore the world of She. The tale begins generations before, with an ancient Greek priest of Isis named Callicrates and an ancient Egyptian priestess Amenartas, who fled Egypt after they fell in love and escaped to the island of Zanzibar off the coast of Tanzania. Before Amenartas died, she left behind a message, passed down through generations, to find Ayesha, the immortal queen who killed the man she loved. This descendant is Leo, who, along with his guardian Holly and their companion Job, set out from England to Zanzibar. Here they meet the Haggard tribe, the people ruled by Ayesha. They're taken deep into the ruins of the ancient city of Kor, the same place where Callicrates and Amenartas lived, and where Ayesha now rules. 2,000 years ago, Ayesha fell madly in love with Callicrates and brought him to the Pillar of Life, deep within the caves of Kor, a fire that grants immortality. She wanted them to bathe in it and live forever, but Callicrates refused to leave Amenartas, and in a fit of jealousy and passion, Ayesha killed Callicrates. For the next 2,000 years, she rules Kor, waiting for Callicrates to be reborn and reincarnated. When Leo then arrives, she believes he has finally returned. To give a quick recap of the story, Callicrates and Amenartas flee Egypt 2,000 years ago, where they arrive in Kor and meet Ayesha. Ayesha falls in love with Callicrates. He refuses immortality from her, so she murders him and Amenartas escapes. In the Victorian era in the late 1800s, Leo, who is a descendant of Callicrates and Amenartas, with Holly and Job, travels to Kor, where he meets Ayesha, and she believes that he is Callicrates reborn. I have heard of the beauty of celestial beings. Now I saw it. But beautiful, surpassingly beautiful as they were, her loveliness did not lie in them. It lay rather in a visible majesty, in an imperial grace, and a godlike stamp of softened power. These excerpts I've shared describe Ayesha's supernatural beauty and divine aura. It describes her being more than human, something ancient and powerful, something no mortal woman could possess. As there are many themes with Egypt and Greece, it only makes sense to look at the connection between Ayesha and Isis. In Egyptian mythology, Isis and Osiris were siblings and lovers, children of Geb, the earth, and Nut, the sky. Their brother, Set, was jealous of Osiris and murdered him. Through her devotion and grief, Isis resurrected Osiris and conceived a son, Horus. Osiris died again and became ruler of the underworld. Isis then became a symbol of the eternal feminine, a mother, healer, protector, and bringer of wisdom. The worship of Isis spread from Egypt to Greece around 300 BC in the Hellenistic period, and by the 2nd century it had spread to the Roman Empire. One of the most famous temples of Isis can still be seen in Pompeii. Haggard also wrote She during the height of Egyptomania in Victorian England, and this is likely where he drew his inspiration from. The parallels between the stories of Isis and Osiris and Callicrates and Ayesha are striking. Just as Isis sought to resurrect Osiris, Ayesha waits 2,000 years for the return of Callicrates. Both stories revolve around the idea that love can transcend death. Carl Jung actually wrote about this novel as a manifestation of the anima, the unconscious feminine in every man. Ayesha is believed to embody the ideal love, according to the men she meets, who become enamored by her. To them, she embodies the divine feminine, and they have a hard time accepting her bad side, as the traits of her eternal wisdom, passion, and utmost devotion to Callicrates in life and death overshadow the wrong she did, since she was the one that killed Callicrates. So, what did this woman eat for 2,000 years to stay alive and await the reincarnation of her love? Ayesha tells Holly that naught but fruit doth ever pass my lips, fruit and cakes of flour, and a little water. This sounds incredibly simple, but this little detail tells us a lot about Asha. In Egyptian tradition, priests ate small flour cakes and offered them to deities like Isis. Cakes were particularly important as Isis is said to be the goddess of grain and nourishment, reinforcing the idea that Asha is connected to Isis through this divine nourishment. When I first researched cakes in Zanzibar, most have been influenced by later cultures and migrations like Swahili cookies or nangatai. So instead, we should go further back to the Hellenistic period, which would have been from the time of Asha and Callicrates. In the 1st century Roman cookbook Apicius, there's a description of Greek honey cakes made of flour. There are similar entries in later writings from 180 BC mentioning enkitoi, and in the 2nd century cookbook Onomasticon, we find a recipe of cakes made of oil, water, honey, and flour. This seems like the cakes referred to by Haggard, usually made of emmer, spelt, or barley flour ground by hand. Here I've mixed together 150 grams of flour, 75 grams of honey, and 1 tablespoon of olive oil, and I mix in the water until the dough comes together. We can then put this in the oven at 160 degrees Celsius for 10 to 12 minutes until they're ready. So let's talk about the fruits that she speaks of. This ties in again to Isis and her association with the universal archetype of the tree of life. The ishet tree and the sycamore fig tree are both native to Zanzibar and are often referred to by Egyptian mythology as the tree of life. Asha, living deep within the caves of Kor, had little contact with outside civilization and would have likely eaten fruits native to East Africa such as jackfruit, papaya, watermelon, guava, soursop, lots of different types of banana, and passion fruit. Here's what our platter is looking like. So we've got some fig, guava, pineapple, and banana. These cakes of flour, they looked a bit doughy, so halfway through I flattened them, and I'm just checking the texture here. It looks okay, looks like it's somewhat edible, so we can try this. I think we're ready to try Asha's flour cakes, or cakes of flour, which you can see here. I know they look quite ugly, because we had to flatten them. And then we've got a selection of fruits which I think that she would have eaten. Let's try some of the cake, and then we'll try some of the fruit. You know, it's quite sweet. Sweeter than I expected. It tastes a lot like flour. I think in here it would have been good to have some like nuts or something like that. It was surprisingly better than I expected. It's not great, but it's better than what I thought it would be. We're going to try this with a bit of fruit to see if it complements the cakes. There's a nice pineapple. It's nice and ripe. Yeah, I think the tartness of that goes well with the honey cake because it's quite doughy and sweet. I wish I could have found some other varieties of banana, but these are just the normal, I think, South American ones that you can find in the supermarkets. I think banana is already a bit sweet and mushy, and it's kind of the same flavour as this. And the pineapple definitely works better. Let's try the guava now. And that's also really nice, but I think it needs to be a bit more ripe. And then finally, the most important one, the fig. See how that pairs. The fig is again really beautiful. These figs are not in season, so they're not as sweet, but still really nice. Overall, would I eat this? Same thing for 2,000 years, waiting for someone that I love. Probably not, especially not these. I think that if I were to get a different platter of fruit every day, I could potentially live on that. But these honestly are not that great. I might have not done them justice, to be fair. Maybe they are genuinely really great and I just don't know. So that's Asha's meal, the only things that she ate. So join me next time, and if you have any other ideas, comments and suggestions, please let me know down below.